you to all of our hardworking staff, especially Missy Woodward, who is our Director of Events and Marketing, and incredible staff of people, Jeff Wiener, our Executive Assistant, Stephanie Knudsen, our incredible volunteers, our event producer, Jim Hughes, Victor Basso, and all the other wonderful people who helped to make this evening come together. So thank you to all of them. Thank you to our sponsors. Now turn it over to Dennis and Brooke. Enjoy the discussion.
Want to get quickly the mic? That's it. Thank you.
Why not?
All right, everybody. Hi.
I thought I could heckle you from down there with mine, but I guess I'll have to turn it over to Brooke.
All right, I'm going to make a few comments, and then I'm going to ask Brooke some questions and move along here. There are some little themes that came through that I just want to point out. I'm sure many of you would have noted it as well, but it's worth, I still feel worth noting. The woman that you spent time about, the one who did blow herself up at the pizza parlor in Israel, it was a strikingly beautiful woman, at least in the pictures. I mean, she could have been a model or an actress, I think, in Western society. The fascinating thing about it is not her beauty, although it's related to what I wanted to comment on, is the throwaway line about her life being miserable because she couldn't have children, and so she was divorced because she couldn't have children, as if that makes perfect sense in Palestinian society. If you were to ask me why I am pessimistic about Palestinian society and much of the Muslim Middle East, I would probably point to that as much as to any other single factor, that in the 21st century, a woman can be divorced for not having children and totally understood and expected by the society. It is to speak of a centuries, almost millennia-wide gulf between them and others. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, actually I wanted to mention as well. When we were talking with her mom off camera, and her name is Wafa Idris. She was the first female Palestinian suicide bomber. And we were talking to her mom and her nieces and her whole family off camera. And basically what came through was a more accurate version of the story, which is that not only was she divorced, she was barren, but she was also an adulteress. And she was threatened with an honor killing. And in the face of an honor killing, she had to choose basically between a rock and a hard spot. Am I going to go down in shame? Am I going to bring my family down in shame? Or am I going to do something that would raise their heads high? So obviously she chose the latter, and she blew herself up in Israel.
How silly she met a man who loved her even though she couldn't have children. I'm just reading into the possibilities of why she would have been unfaithful, if indeed she was. Why didn't you include that in the film?
Well, we didn't include it because it wasn't 100%. We weren't 100% sure that that was the accurate version of the story, so we didn't want to propagate any myth out there, but that was what was told to us by some of her relatives and then denied by the other half. So.
I'm going to ask you a question, and it's a pure hunch, that those of you who made this film, obviously beginning with you, were, and if I'm wrong, tell me, I'm prepared to be wrong, that you were a bit unpleasantly surprised at how bad things are in terms of support for such death.
Absolutely. I think one of my motives for going in and doing something as silly as risking my own life to speak with these people was because I couldn't really comprehend. I couldn't comprehend how a mother could send her own child to die. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. It's barbaric. And something inside me I had to see for myself. But I also want to say, originally I didn't go in to the West Bank, even with the desire to make a film. It was more with the intention to collect a series of depositions. I was a law student when I started the film, and I wanted to collect evidence of what I thought was a crime against children, which is the incitement and recruitment of these children to become suicide bombers. So initially I went in, I did these interviews, I came out with 82 hours worth of interviews, and I showed it to a filmmaker friend of mine, and they said, oh, you have a great film here. So we said, yeah, I mean, that's great. We should make a film. It's a great way to raise public awareness about the issue. So that's pretty much the story behind that.
But it did come through that, especially when the narrator says pessimistic, that you went in a little more optimistic. I'm always fascinated by this, and this is not meant in any way critically. I obviously adore what you did and had you on my own radio show to promote this. I think that it is very widespread in the West. And I say this only in an understanding way, a certain naivete about evil generally, and about the love of death that permeates a significant part of the Arab world. And I don't blame you at all. It's very hard not to believe that, gee, underneath it all, we're all the same. But we're not all the same.
No.
And so you have been, I think, somewhat sobered by this, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I'm a bit more of a pessimist now. But also it's important to note psychologically, I mean, this is a form of love. These parents honestly believe, they'll look you in the eye and they'll say, I believe my kid is in heaven, and not just that, but he secured me a place too, and look at this, I'm getting 10 grand a month from what used to be the PA, and they're respected in their society. So this is a form of honor, it's a form of love, it's a completely twisted form of love. But I also want to mention, talking about the psychology and the mental disconnect, you'll see it, you saw in the clip of the child explaining to the interviewer, no, death is not martyrdom, martyrdom is not death. For these kids, it's a completely different thing. They literally do not comprehend that they are going to die when they explode their limbs. They think they're going to some sort of parallel universe. And they'll correct you. When you say, well, you're not going to be here, you're going to die, and they'll correct you with very detailed descriptions of what they think heaven will look like. And they think there's going to be Ferris wheels there. They think there's going to be cotton candy. And they'll repeat to you exactly what they've seen in the cartoons and the music videos.
This is not meant as a joke. I've always wondered this, and I still don't know the answer. The men are promised 72 virgins. What are the women promised?
Nothing.
Does that not? I'm serious. I've always wondered this. Do you know?
No football.
Nothing. Nothing.
They have a nice place to stay. You're going to die for a nice place to stay. I have a nice place in West LA. They're all invited to stay there instead of going. No, that's why, by the way, I do believe that with the females, it even adds more credibility to what you heard, that she was in trouble with her family. Because I think for the females, it's more to escape life. And for the males, it's more to get the rewards of death.
So I think with everyone, though, there's a trend of marginalization, that they're left out. The cool kids are never the ones that want to die, or never the ones who become suicide bombers, but they are the ones who are used by the adult members of Al-Aqsa Hamas to recruit the other kids who are the loser kids, and they're also paid. So, for example, Nasser and Thayer were each paid $100 to go to Hussam and say, hey, you want to be cool like us? Come blow yourself up. So, but you'll see this theme, and what Avi Issachar said in the movie, it's their way of fitting in, it's their way of becoming a hero, becoming famous.
There was, I kept thinking during this fine film, is there anything I would have asked that you didn't? And it was really only one thing, and I'm wondering if you did get to ask Husham, is that his correct name? And that is, you were captured by the Israelis, whom you wanted to blow up and maim and paralyze and brain damage. And they're treating you pretty darn nicely. Has this had any impact on the way you view Jews? Because they look at them only as Jews, not Israelis. But even Israelis, it doesn't matter. Did you ask that at any point?
No, we didn't ask that. We didn't ask
You
that.
should have called me, I would have.